A space station, also known as an orbital station or an orbital space station, is a spacecraft capable of supporting a human crew in orbit for an extended period of time, and is therefore a type of space habitat. It lacks major propulsion or landing systems. Stations must have docking ports to allow other spacecraft to dock to transfer crew and supplies. The purpose of maintaining an orbital outpost varies depending on the program. Space stations have most often been launched for scientific purposes, but military launches have also occurred. As of 2021, one fully operational and permanently inhabited space station is in low Earth orbit. The International Space Station, which is used to study the effects of spaceflight on the human body as well as to provide a location to conduct a greater number and longer length of scientific studies than is possible on other space vehicles. China, India, Russia, and the US, as well as Bigelow Aerospace and Axiom Space, are all planning other stations for the coming decades. The first mention of anything resembling a space station occurred in Edward Everett Hale's 1869. The Brick Moon, the first to give serious, scientifically grounded consideration to space stations, were Konstantin Tsiolkovsky and Hermann Oberth, about 2 decades apart in the early 20th century. In 1929, Hermann Potoknek's The Problem of Space Travel was published. The first to envision a rotating wheel space station to create artificial gravity. Conceptualized during the Second World War, the Sun Gun was a theoretical orbital weapon orbiting Earth at a height of 8,200 kilometers. No further research was ever conducted. In 1951, Wernher von Braun published a concept for a rotating wheel space station in Collier's Weekly, referencing Potoknek's idea. However, development of a rotating station was never begun in the 20th century. During the latter half of the 20th century, the Soviet Union developed and launched the world's first space station, Salyut 1. The Almar and Salyut series were eventually joined by Skylab, Mir, and Tiangong-1 and Tiangong-2. The hardware developed during the initial Soviet efforts remains in use, with evolved variants comprising a considerable part of the IS. Orbiting today, each crew member stays aboard the station for weeks or months, but rarely more than a year. Starting with the ill-fated flight of the Soyuz 11 crew to Salyut 1. All recent human spaceflight duration records have been set aboard space stations. The duration record for a single spaceflight is 437.75 days. Set by Valery Polyakov aboard Mir from 1994 to 1995. As of 2016, 4 cosmonauts have completed single missions of over a year, all aboard Mir. The last military-use space station was the Soviet Salyut 5, which was launched under the Almar program and orbited between 1976 and 1977. Early stations were monolithic designs that were constructed and launched in one piece, generally containing all their supplies and experimental equipment. A crew would then be launched to join the station and perform research. After the supplies had been used up, the station was abandoned. The first space station was Salyut 1, which was launched by the Soviet Union on April 19, 1971. The earlier Soviet stations were all designated Salyut, but among these there were 2 distinct types, civilian and military. The military stations, Salyut 2, Salyut 3, and Salyut 5, were also known as Almar stations. The civilian stations Salyut 6 and Salyut 7 were built with 2 docking ports, which allowed a second crew to visit, bringing a new spacecraft with them. The Soyuz ferry could spend 90 days in space, at which point it needed to be replaced by a fresh Soyuz spacecraft. This allowed for a crew to man the station continually. The American Skylab was also equipped with 2 docking ports, like second-generation stations, but the extra port was never utilized. The presence of a second port on the new stations allowed Progress supply vehicles to be docked to the station, meaning that fresh supplies could be brought to aid long-duration missions. This concept was expanded on Salyut 7, which, hard-docked with a TKS tug shortly before it was abandoned. This served as a proof of concept for the use of modular space stations. The later Salyuts may reasonably be seen as a transition between the two groups. Unlike previous stations, the Soviet space station Mir had a modular design. A core unit was launched, and additional modules, generally with a specific role, were later added to that. This method allows for greater flexibility in operation, as well as removing the need for a single immensely powerful launch vehicle. Modular stations are also designed from the outset to have their supplies provided by logistical support craft, which allows for a longer lifetime at the cost of requiring regular support launches. Modules are still being developed based on the design and capabilities of Mir. China's first space laboratory, Tiangong-1, was launched